is basically you're born with a depletion of dopamine. So your brain is always looking for the next squirt of dopamine. And when something is interesting to you, you put your attention to that because it's giving you dopamine, reinforces that. When you're not getting that dopamine at the same amount, your brain goes to the next shiny object. And it keeps doing that. And if you don't have the control over it, all you're doing is jumping from one to another to another.
Welcome to the Willpower Podcast. All right, Len. So first, let's talk about endoDNA, because I'm sure that's, a huge part of your life right now. So just tell me about like how this came to be and how you got into the realm of genetics and genetic testing.
Yeah, it's a pretty long story. I think what I'll do is I'll start with me as a kid, and I'll explain why this is important to me. Uh, I'm an immigrant, so I was born in Lithuania, and I immigrated here with my parents and my grandparents when I was about 6. And once I got the language and all that stuff, I was in school, and I was sitting in class. The teacher would call me, and I wasn't paying attention. Like my brain was elsewhere. I was thinking about other things, daydreaming, or whatever you want to call that. So I became disruptive after a while in class because I just wasn't interested. And as a teenager, I was diagnosed with ADHD. My parents took me to doctors and put on medication. The medication allowed me or helped me to focus a little, but it removed me from my sense of self emotionally. So there was no ups, there was no downs. I'm not happy. I think once you take it for a while, it starts triggering some of those adverse effects where it's depression, all those other things. But I didn't get it. I didn't get to that. I came to school one morning. There were some kids there. Asked me if I want to smoke a cigarette. It's like, yeah, man, I'll smoke a cigarette. I'm gonna be cool. One of the cool kids. I tried cigarettes before. I don't advocate any of this stuff, by the way. I'm just telling my story. And I do not smoke cigarettes now. But that one cigarette, which was interesting, I never questioned why one. And I passed it around. They gave it to me. I took a drag. It was, tastes interesting. Didn't taste like a cigarette that I remember tasting. Took another drag, maybe coughed. I don't remember. I gave it back to them. They're laughing at me. I'm like, what? Or like, they put cannabis in a cigarette. So when I went back to class, the windows are like open. If you look at a browser and you have all these windows open, that's what goes on in my head. They all narrowed. I could focus. So I never said anything to anybody, but cannabis, I got off all the prescription meds and cannabis became my meds. So my parents would catch me. I would get in trouble, like all this stuff. And when I was almost 18, they ended up calling the cops on me, trying to have me arrested. And then 2 female officers came in, and the one was like, if it was my son, I would kick him in the curb. So my dad goes, you have 5 minutes, go upstairs, get your stuff. And he literally kicked me out of the door. Now, the irony or whatever you want to call it, that my parents both take products in my company as patents on now. So they came full circle, really proud of, what we do. But at that time, whatever, they didn't think about it. So, was homeless for a while, couch surfed, but it just kind of fast forward things. So I went to physical therapy school, never worked a day in my life. I was always kind of leaning into my curiosity without even understanding what I'm doing with my ADHD. And I didn't realize that this was my superpower because I didn't have any sort of lanes around it. I didn't realize that made me different in a way. You always connect to the thing of having a disorder. You have attention. I didn't have hyperactive attention deficit. This disorder, that something is wrong with me. Well, reframing that, I think, helps a lot too. Anyway, fast forward, got into corporate America. I had an internet company I exited out of, got into corporate America, worked at Price Waterhouse, then PwC, then some venture capital work, became a commercial real estate broker. But cannabis was always a part of my life. I was the president of the Cannabis Action Network. And when I moved to Los Angeles from Philly, I got into the dispensary business. And I kept seeing two people will consume the same chemical variety and have a completely different experience. So ADD kicked in with hyperfocus, and I started researching. I found a video by a guy who claimed to be the first person genetically sequenced a plant. Contacted them, went to work as a consultant there. And my job was to travel the US, get plant material from different cultivators, bring it to my lab, extract the DNA, and sequence it. So we started the first genetic library of the plant called Cannapedia, different cultivars and chemovars, chemical varieties, and we put them on the blockchain. And the parent company of this company was a pharmacogenomics company. They did PGX testing is the study of how drugs affect individual bodies, also drug to drug interaction, all that stuff. So I got involved in that in the human genetic side. And one of the things that when you're a polymath, ADHD and polymathy, there's a connection if you have genetic predispositions for that. And you're actually a polymath is somebody who has different disciplines they study and they become experts in that discipline because they're interested in do a deep dive. So uh, that's sort of my personality. I dive into different things that really interest me, and human genetics really interested me. So I hung out with a lot of scientists and really learned a lot. And our light bulb moment said, we have plant DNA here, we have human DNA here. Let's bring those two together and create a test, a platform. They weren't interested in it, so I got a chance to grab some really smart people and launched EndoDNA in 2017. So our first foray into genetic testing was an endocannabinoid system test. And we have a patent on the use of DNA to make recommendations around the endocannabinoid system. And then from there, doctors started reaching out to us and they said, hey, we have patients with perimenopause symptoms. We have patients with this, that. Can we create platforms or tests that will help us get ahead of those predispositions, those conditions before they express themselves? So maybe we can make sure we mitigate the expression of them. So we created the platform that allows genetics, a whole genome with all your blood markers, et cetera, that uses machine learning, and it helps doctors with their. It's a diagnostic support platform. So we don't diagnose. We provide the information for healthcare professionals with all this information, genetics and epigenetics. And what they can do is track how well their protocol works for the individuals. So the AI will learn based on the protocols the doctors, create themselves with the platform suggestions, and it's becomes a decision support platform for those healthcare professionals.
Right. So it gets better and better as doctors actually use it and
Exactly.
try it
Mm-hmm.
out. Um, so for you, was that the only effect you noticed of cannabis? Was that like the main thing? Like this just kind of helps me focus and it clears up those windows, like you said, or were there other pieces of it as well
Well,
that
I
like you?
think I just think cannabis is complex. So it's not just one effect of cannabis; it's one effect of a certain type of cannabinoid and terpene profile that works with my endocannabinoid system that allows me to uh, turn down some of the other thoughts and systems that my mind is trying to race to. Because look, ADHD is basically you're born with the depletion of dopamine. So your brain is always looking for the next squirt of dopamine. And when something is interesting to you, you put your attention to that because it's giving you dopamine and reinforces that. When you're not getting that dopamine at the same amount, your brain goes to the next shiny object and it keeps doing that. And if you don't have the control over it, all you're doing is jumping from one to another and have all these squirrel moments, oh, next. But certain there are deficiencies in your endocannabinoid system that you can supplement for with phytocannabinoids. But I just don't think people understand how the endocannabinoid system works. Everybody equates these things with, this is a drug, this is an illicit substance. Well, it's the drug itself is a ligand to your own receptors. So your own neurochemistry is the one that's creating the changes. So it's like an example of cocaine, right? Schedule 2. Cannabis is Schedule 1 narcotic, even though 37 states have it legal for a medicinal or adult use. So it's really odd that it has no medicinal purposes. The federal government has patents on it. It grows it, does research with it, it actually recommended under a NIDA program to many people that had different conditions, but then Schedule 1. But cocaine is a Schedule 2 that has some medicinal properties and you can prescribe it. But the way that it works is almost every drug that we have comes from plants and that's synthesized and created as a pharmaceutical so they can replicate it. So cocaine from the actual plant, when you consume cocaine, it binds to your dopamine receptors and excretes a whole bunch of dopamine into your brain. This is the most addictive substance that we can have. Our brain, we love dopamine. So our brain is going, yeah, and it blocks the reuptake of this dopamine. And then after a while, when the dopamine is taken back up, your brain is like, oh, well, I don't have to create as much endogenous dopamine. I like this. I'm going to send signals to get exogenous dopamine. So give me more of that substance, right? So you get, and if you have a predisposition to dependence, now you're turning that on. And now you're on this sort of hamster wheel of give me more, cocaine because I'm getting dopamine. But from the endocannabinoid system side, you have this amazing endocannabinoid system. And it was discovered in 1992 by Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, an Israeli scientist, passed away about a year ago or so. And it's a primary modulating system. So what its role is to maintain balance or homeostasis within our bodies. And the way that it does that, it gets signals from the other systems, like our endocrine system, our immune system, sends that up the central nervous system, like salmon swimming upstream to the brain. And the brain makes a decision which neurochemicals, endogenous neurochemicals, to excrete. So the two that we produce ourselves, the first one is called anandamide. So the word ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. So this is when you are running or you hear David Goggins you're getting that runner's high kind of thing. That's anandamide that's being excreted into your brain. It's not endorphins, very small amounts, a lot of anandamide, bliss. You feel that runner's high kind of thing. The second one is called 2AG, and that one is excreted as well into your body. And we have receptors, CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors are mostly located in our brain and central nervous system. CB2 receptors are in our immune, digestive system, etc. So when we consume the plant in its decarboxylated state, which is heated, when you heat it, the plant itself has an acid molecule. So the active ingredient that gets you high, quote unquote, whatever, is THC, delta 9. So THC, when you get it from the plant, it's THCA. When you heat it, it drops the acid molecule and it becomes delta 9 THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. That binds to your CB1 receptors, remember your brain, and secretes anandamide. When you consume CBD in its decarboxylated form, it has an affinity for the CB2 receptor body and excretes 2AG. So having the right balance of your own endogenous endocannabinoids maintains homeostasis. Taking too much of one or the other, that's when you start getting these adverse effects.
Interesting. I'm sure this varies, but is the ratio in like grown marijuana itself typically what the body, does that keep us in that homeostasis, or is it ever off?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the plant itself has over 400 different components to it. We're complex, the plant is complex. Getting the right type of plant that comes from nature with the right cannabinoids, which are the genetics of the plant. And then the second part of this, it has terpenes. Terpenes or terpenoids are the essential oils of the plant. They give it its smell. So if you smell a plant, the smell is skunky or diesely. Well, that's heavy in myrcene. Or the smell is sort of piney, and that's pinene. Or this smells sort of citrusy. Well, that's limonene. This smells like lavender. This is linalool. These are different essential oils in the plant. They work together to have an effect. So we have these things that give you that up feeling. Well, if you're predisposed to stress and anxiety, if you're taking too much delta 9 THC with limonene and things that give you that up feeling, that secrete more dopamine, you can trigger that stress reactivity if you're predisposed to that. So feeling a little bit more anxiety. Some people are predisposed to depressive states. So depending on what you consume that doesn't align with you, you can trigger that adverse effect. Things like myrcene that I said, skunky diesely, they're usually connected with sedation, so feeling sleepy or support sleep. So if you're going to take that during the day, you may feel, sedated, and that's not the effect that you want. So it's aligning your chemistry, your own body, what you're naturally deficient in with the plant. And right now, there, a lot of things are hybrid. So everything is grown and manipulated. So there's no more of these, wild grown. But it used to be where certain people uh, consume what is local to that population. And if you think about it, years ago, before prohibition, the animals would eat hemp that wouldn't get you high, but it was a certain type that would grow out in the fields. It would be in our water. It would be everywhere, and we would, consume that without knowing. But my theory is perhaps that was helping to maintain our own endocannabinoid systems because it was part of our nutrition, what we consumed. And during prohibition, when that ended, I think it started creating these deficiencies in our own naturally producing endocannabinoids.
So back to your story, do you have any experience with quote unquote like harder drugs beyond like
Oh,
because you
I've
talked
I've
about
done
cigarettes
hard.
and
Oh yeah, no, I've done just about everything. I think I've dabbled. Luckily, after I got into doing genetic testing, I don't have those dependent genes. Luckily for me, but there was some wonderful experience. There was some less than wonderful experiences. But I think that every experience is a learning experience. When you have something, there's like this is really good. It makes me feel really good. The way to really work within drugs in general is to ask questions. And if you don't have the capacity to ask those questions, work with somebody that can help you reintegrate after you're doing something. They can help you open things up. Psychedelics are interesting. Some of them are extremely intense experiences and scary and all these other things. But to go and really speak to somebody to try to figure out what was happening. Maybe it's a one-time shot. Maybe somebody needs something to kind of, shake them up a little bit so they can start thinking in a different way. Some of them are needed for therapeutic reasons. Yeah, but I've done both for recreational or whatever reasons for fun, and then I've done more therapeutic doses.
can you tell us about like one of those like peak good experiences and then also the flip side?
Well, I'll tell you about my back-to-back DMT journey, the methyltryptamine. So I didn't want to get into an ayahuasca journey. I've done plenty of psychedelics, LSD and psilocybin, but I've never done DMT. So it was a smokable version of that. The person I was with said, "Okay, just take it in, inhale it, hold it, exhale it, and you'll be good." So I did that, and all of a sudden, everything went black. So complete darkness. Then I started seeing, I'm not even sure if this was a version of me or not, but I felt like I was falling, and I was falling rapidly. And there was like, if I can remember, like rungs of a ladder, basically. So I was trying to grab on to prevent myself from falling and dying, basically. And I couldn't grab onto anything. And at some point, I fell and I woke up, and I I thought that I died. It was really scary. I couldn't even get my mind around what was happening. And I was telling the person I was with, and I was explaining, trying to explain, trying to get my thoughts together. And he was like, "Well, why are you holding on? Why are you trying to hold on?" It's like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, just let go." Interesting. So I said, "All right, let's try it again." I'm not advocating any of these things. I'm just telling my own experience. So I did it again, and I literally decided that I was going to completely let go. So I closed my eyes and I like leaned back, and it was a mattress or whatever, or a couch. I don't remember what it was. I laid down. Also, no sense of self. Like, I don't know where I am, what's going on. But I started sort of moving through this darkness and started seeing these geometric shapes. And they were all uh, like fluorescent colors, like a fluorescent pink, a fluorescent orange. And uh, it's a triangle, but it's not a triangle. It's sort of interesting looking triangle, like 3, 4D, 5, I don't know. And every single time that I would move towards these things, it would give me this feeling of euphoria. Like it made me feel really good. So I kept doing that. And then I woke up. So that was my, I guess, good experience. I have no understand. I've spoken to a bunch of people and like, oh, you didn't go deep enough. You would talk to these, things, and they would, I guess I didn't go deep enough. I don't know, but I'll tell you, it was a big difference between the first journey and the second journey.
Yeah, I like it. Um, okay, so before this, we talked briefly, and you mentioned divorce. So I wanted to
Mhm.
to bring that up and just hear like what was it like to be married in the first place, and then what was the experience of ending that marriage?
What was it like being married? You know, marriage is just an interesting concept because at the end of the day, it's a legal contract. The only difference between, to me, the only difference between being married and being in a committed relationship with somebody is a piece of paper that creates a legal contract between the parties that has to do with finances or division of assets if your partnership in business doesn't go well. And I've had this in business. And if I really looked at marriage in that way, I probably would have done things differently. So, marriage itself is you. I was young too, and my ex-wife was young, and you sort of learn. And the thing that you get into is this, or at least I got into, is this codependency kind of thing. Uh, Two people come together. I'm a certain way. I like to give. My ex like to receive. So it works for a while until resentment begins. And when you have resentment that you're constantly given, somebody's taken, it starts festering. So this is, you know, 14, almost 14 years married, 15 years married, together for like 18 years. So it's a big chunk of my life. And I have a beautiful daughter. So it's, I'm not taking away from that, but it's an experience where I think if I were to do this again, and I'm in a great relationship now, uh, I would treat it differently where it starts with a lot of self work. So instead of trying to get that from the other person after going through a divorce, which is a horrible experience, divorce itself, and we were talking about this too, to me, and I've read many books about this, it's sort of a death, right? So you go through all the feelings of that you would deal with when there's a loss. There's anger, there's grief, all the grieving. Uh, the thing that really helped me is my friend was going through a divorce at the same time, just about, and he asked me if I can help him. I'm going through my own thing, but he's like, yeah, you further through it. So I did, and he's like, and my cousin's gonna be going through divorce. Can you talk to him? Uh, okay, fine. And then he's like, you should do a group, like a men's group for divorce, because we couldn't find any. Like we were looking, is there a support group? There are plenty of female divorce groups with no men. So I'm like, yeah, what am I gonna do? Who's gonna see me? All these different things. So I started a meetup, and it was for men. It was rebuilding your life after divorce. So the first one, I think 5 people came, And I started getting emails from women saying, "Is this for men only?" I thought about it. I'm like, no. So I had somewhere around 800 people that for like 4 years I did this group, and that was my therapy. I started listening to other people's stories. I started listening to see to facilitating group and hearing what other people's relationships were like, and it really helped me to heal my own and realize that you know a lot of things I you allow those things in your relationship. So why are you why are you the way you are? Who were you at the time that you met? And what kind of things do you want to improve in yourself? And once you start this journey of personal development, self work, whatever you want to call it, you're working with even, a therapist, working with coaches, trying to figure out what it is that I can improve myself. You start seeing that in yourself. What are how are you attracting different types of people in your life? Because you're on this journey. Maybe on this journey, you're meeting people that are different. And I thought to myself, if I were to meet my ex-wife now, we would not be a good match. And I came to that realization years later.
Do you think it took going through a divorce to recognize these things? Or do you think it's something you would have found on your path anyways?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have found on my path. What happens is you start feeling there was a moment in my life where I would pull into my garage. I was living in this condo in LA. I'll pull into my garage and I had coaching. I did Tony Robbins. I started doing all that stuff. And we try to do it together even. And I sat in my garage and I'm like, oh, I got to go inside. Let me visualize to make sure that I'm going to have a great experience. I'm going to come in. I'm going to say, hi, honey, I'm home. Oh my God, it smells great. What's for dinner? Go kiss my daughter. And what can I do to help you with dinner? Like, I visualize this whole thing. I'm like, I'm going to do all that. And I come in the house and it's not like that. No matter what I did, it was misalignment. So it was this cycle that I was in. I couldn't break out of, and I knew that it was wrong. And I didn't think I had the courage to make a move. But we tried. We even did like couples therapy a little bit, and that was a big failure. So I don't know if I would have came across these things on my own with going with the divorce. I just think that some people some people just grow, or that fog that you have through your life, maybe that fog starts clearing and you start seeing each other clearly. And maybe as you start seeing each other clearly and you start talking, thinking about mortality, is this what it's about? Is this where I want to be for the rest of my life? Is this what kind of relationship I want to have? And instead of fear, like, oh no, going through a divorce will create this, this, and this, and this, maybe kind of look at it as maybe this is part of the process of growth. Maybe you have a starter marriage and you figure out all your stuff during this marriage, and then the next one is better. I'm not sure.
And what was it like with having a daughter as well? Did that factor into like, I guess, making that decision or how long it took to make that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it factored in completely. It was all about our daughter, and she was small at that time. I think we got divorced. She was 21, so like 8, some of that. But this was sort of the culmination. We were arguing and we were arguing. It was and yelling. It was just wrong. And I remember my daughter coming in and she drew a picture, like mommy and daddy on either side. And she had a heart that was sort of broken in the middle with tears. I was like, I'm not going to put my daughter through this stuff. I don't think you need to argue like that with somebody who you live with, who's in the same house. It's not the way like my parents did. It's not the way I want to live my life. So that was a huge part of the decision to make sure that I don't expose my daughter to that type of relationship because I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to conflict. I didn't know the best way to resolve conflict. It was always arguing and yelling. And I think that was a lot of self work, conflict resolution. Let's talk about facts. Let's not name. At some point, when you're arguing like that, you forget the whole point that you were arguing in the first place. So it's never resolution. You're just defending yourself from, the shit that's being thrown at you. So I think that being able to really get to the root cause of why am I being bothered by this, and have a conversation that's a civil conversation with love and respect, and that's what I have in my relationship now. That's something I didn't have in my marriage.
Yeah, it can get so easy to just like, for me, just like digging my heels in and being like, I'm gonna figure out how I can win this and be right. When
Yeah.
really the question should be like, what do I need right now and what does she need right now? And like what we're saying isn't it's all coming from a different place. It's coming from a place of need. Like she needs to feel more loved, or I need to feel like she hears me. And then that's all just getting the way it comes out is not clear. So I think getting back to that center of like what is it I really need right now, or what is it that she is needing? And it's not easy because it's kind of human tendency to want to win and want to be right and want to just like force my view of the world onto this person. But the more that I can get away from that, the better I've found.
No, I agree with you. You know, I was I was in a bar. I was in Vegas at a conference, and I don't gamble. So my friend's a big gambler, and I was there with my friend. So he went to play the tables. I went to the bar. So I'll grab a beer and I'll just sit there and nurse a beer for it. I just like to people watch or talk. And there was this couple that came out, and there was an insurance convention or something like that. And they were there. They're married and they have an insurance company together. And they sat next to me, and I liked their bickering, but it wasn't like fighting mean. It was just like it was a really nice exchange they had. It was kind of cool. And I was said, hey, how you doing? Whatever, whatever. And we got talking, and we're like, oh, we're also here. We're it's our I think 40th wedding anniversary or some of that. I'm like, oh man, it's kind of cool. I said, what's your secret? Like, all right. We don't go to we don't go to sleep angry at each other. I'm like, okay, that's not a story. I've heard that a gazillion times. That's not a secret. I got it. I said, tell me something more. And the guy goes like this. He goes, and he gets serious for a second. And he said, every day when I wake up, I think, what can I do to make her day better? And she said, well, every day I wake up and I think, what can I do to make his day better? And I was like, aha, that is, if you can get that in a relationship, really think about both people are giving. So there's not this whole inequality in a relationship. I think that's sort of the secret sauce.
And there's no calculation either. There's no like, oh, if I give this, what am I getting back? It's just framed
None
as
of
like,
that.
what can I
None of
do
that.
to improve this person? Yeah.
And yeah, and what a great point that you just made. I think that's the biggest detriment when people try to do that, and that becomes codependent. And that's when similar to my situation and hundreds of people that I've talked to, that's the biggest thing. It's you feel that you're depleting, this person's getting, you're not receiving when you need to receive. It's this inequality, and if two people are saying, no, I mean, my intention is to give. And if you gave 10 times and I didn't get it, I didn't get what I need, well, I will. It's okay. My intention is still to do that every single day. And it doesn't have that scorecard attached to it.
Yeah. Dr. Robert Glover calls them covert contracts. And I think that's
Yeah,
such a good framing of that, which is like
exactly.
these things that you like you're doing something without them knowing that there's a reason behind it and you're expecting something back, but you've never communicated what you're expecting. And so it's just a recipe for resentment and a recipe for disaster.
That's exactly it. But we also have to remember that first of all, women and men have different needs and different things that they expect from each other. But also within that, some people are, they are very happy given the gifts, right? For instance, so some people are like, it makes me so happy to give something. It doesn't matter what it is. And when you receive that and you're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful for that. It's so amazing. It fills them, right? And some people are like, I need to be reinforced with language. You have to tell me how beautiful I am, how this, okay. Or some people have touch. I just like, I need that touch, that human touch from you that makes me feel loved. So you got to figure out within your relationship what makes you, what's fulfilling to you, what's fulfilling to your partner. And maybe there's multiple things you can kind of give and take. It's not like, somebody gives gifts all the time and like, well, I don't have the financial means to give those kind of gifts all the time. It's not about that. I'm giving the gifts because this is what I want to do. I want the response of gratitude and appreciation. That's my love language or whatever that's called. And then on the flip side, if you can just reinforce and reassure me or provide me a sense of security and safety or things of that nature, that's what I need. So it doesn't have to be congruent that way too.
Yep, 100%. It's yeah, like it's those like love languages, and they're often going to be different. The one that's most important, like, and if you expected that you would be giving and receiving the same thing, it's almost just not real. Like, it's not optimal. Because like
Yeah.
in my relationship, my girlfriend likes quality time. That's like her love language is if we spend time together doing something intentional where we're both very present and in the moment, like that means so much to her. And for me, it's like I love when she just reinforces like when she it's I forget the name of that one. Words of affirmation maybe.
Yeah. Information.
Basically
Mm-hmm.
just like tell me I did a good job and I will be happy for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And if she went about trying to satisfy me by giving me quality time, it would like and missing on this other dimension that actually matters to me, we would completely miss the point. And she would miss out, or I would miss out, I guess, on this whole element of happiness that I could be finding in this relationship. And so not expecting that we're the same and that we receive things the same ways is very important. Understanding each other in that way too.
I agree.
Okay, Len, so what is something that you are currently struggling with?
I think it's common to me for most of my life. It's this notion of one thing. You focus, and somebody who's an entrepreneur who loves making things and creating things. And I have minimum three projects all the time. I'm always working on that. I'm sure you can relate to that. Being an entrepreneur, and it's fine. And the idea is, uh, what can I give to the world that I will receive back and feel fulfilled? And it doesn't have to be this big overarching purpose. My purpose, I learned, can be limited. So it's a purpose for now. And at some point, it's something else. And I think the thing that I struggle with a lot is this notion of, is it okay to move on to the next thing? Or do I have to kind of see this through to something? And I don't know what seeing it through to something really means, because when I lose that hit of dopamine, when I'm not getting it anymore, to me, that means that I need to pass this on or move off of that. And a lot of times I tend to stick to these things a little too long. Same with your marriage, same thing with relationships, same thing with partnerships. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out sort of where I put a lot of my energy in. So I'll give you some examples. So I have my company. I'm the CEO. I have great people around me. I still have some control issues that I'm working through. Just handing things over is difficult for me. Delegating is difficult for me. So I have that. I have a book. I'm writing two more books. basically at the same time. So that book is already out. I'm writing two more. One of them is music related. One of them is this ADD polymath kind of connection, things I'm interested in, I'm passionate about. I have a podcast. I love doing my podcast. That's exciting all the time because it's new. It's new every single time because I get to meet interesting people. So it's interesting to me. What am I doing with that? I don't know if I have to do anything with that. I have 289 episodes or almost 290 episodes done. I don't know. I just find it interesting. There's no intent behind it. It doesn't mean I have a business plan behind it. I just find it fun and interesting. I do something called Record of the Day, not to monetize, just because I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of vinyl records. And at some point, maybe this started during COVID, maybe it was after COVID, I don't even remember. I eat my lunch, I take a record, I put it on, and I start recording myself and just saying, hey, this record is so so, and sharing that with people. People like it. So I have, tons of people that ask me, what's your record of the day? I love what you're doing, record of the day. So all these things, and I'm doing so many, and it's just not this one thing. But, and I also do ADHD coaching for people that are, so I live this, and I'm trying to help people that also have the same kind of neurodivergence or whatever you want to call it as me, create systems that allow you to actually utilize those as superpowers. So for me, I have questions that I ask myself, why am I doing these things? I give myself permission to do this, but not more than these, because now, and I have to complete things, which is a big challenge with people who have ADHD. You have a bunch of unfinished projects, and I try to push myself through that, making sure I complete tasks in each one of them. So, those are things that I guess I struggle with on a daily basis.
Yeah, Len, the podcast thing is so interesting because there's no like end date. It's not like a book where you just are like, okay, it's published, that's it. Like the podcast is just it just goes on until you kill it one day.
I don't even know what it means. So I'm a big believer of visualization, right? So I need to see myself in this. So this is why I treat business. I see myself. I know what the exit's going to be. I remember when we got our first funding. We had somebody before we went to get, our Series A round. We traveled to Kelowna, British Columbia to meet with this company. We didn't know what was going to happen. Somebody wired money into our account who wanted to invest in us. And I was telling my business partner, I was like, it's not it, man. I don't feel it. I don't feel it. I said, I see it clearly. This is the other company. And they're like, well, they gave us money. I said, we have to wire it back to them. So I wired it back to them. And they actually ended up staying as a minor investor, like a small, but I wired it back to them because I said, no, it's not it. No offense, but that's not what I see. I said, Eric, it's my business partner. I said, let's go and check it out. So we went to this meeting, we presented, and that's it. Nothing happened. We went to lunch, and we're sitting with the chief medical officer and the chief marketing officer at lunch, and me and my business partner were talking. Nothing happened. And he's like, I can see he's dejected. Like, we didn't get money. We gave money back. What happened? I'm like, man, it'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Maybe I was wrong, but I still feel like I see it. I feel it. I sense it. And this is entrepreneurial sense, I guess, that we have to be attuned to. And then the chief medical officer gets a call or a text. He's like, what time is your flight? And I said, like 9 a.m. tomorrow. He goes, can you meet the CEO of our company like at 7:30 or 7, whatever it was, for breakfast right at the airport? I said, yeah. So we met, and it was like one of those, I don't know how often it happens because it's hard to believe, but it was like one of those meetings you see on TV where somebody writes on a napkin kind of your offer, but he did it on more of a digital pad, like a digital notepad. And he's like, what did these guys offer you before? And I said this. He goes, all right, I'll do this and I'll improve this and I'll give you this and this. Here it is. Here's the deal. And he like wrote it up. And I said, all right, well, Eric and we're flying back together and we're going to talk through it and give us 24 hours to get back to you. So you got 24 hours. If you don't get back to me, I'm pulling the offer off. I said, okay. So it happened exactly the way. I'm not saying it was the best partnership now in hindsight, but at that time I visualized that. So going back to the podcast, I didn't really have a visual for it because I envisioned something completely different. I had a partner at first that was doing it with me, and then he bailed, and I continued doing it. So because I don't have a real like, what is the business of this? What I'm going to do? Oh, I'm going to get bought up by another network, or maybe I'll be the next Joe Rogan. I don't have a vision for this. So to me, right now, I'm just doing it as you said. You're just doing it because it's interesting, it's fun. But at some point, I got to sit down and figure out, okay, I'm spending my resources, I'm spending time. I do have a couple of sponsors, so or advertisers, whatever. So it's cool to have a platform that people I get make 50,000 downloads. So people are interested in it. I have no idea what to do with it per se. So I never thought about it.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting problem. Um, what does your dream life look like?
Uh, my dream life has to do with, first of all, is health. So I want to make sure my number one priority in life is health span, making sure I live a long, healthy. I am very, very afraid of being sick. Like that fear of being sick and being incapacitated drives me to eating the best things I can eat, exercising, like doing the most I can with my health. So that's number one. Making sure I have the means and the resources to continue to do that. Number two, having a wonderful relationship with my daughter, being the best dad that I can be, being the best boyfriend slash husband. I don't know if I'll ever get married again, but being the best partner like that can be, and making a meaningful contribution. Anything that I do, I want to make sure that I'm contributing to the greater good of the world. I know it sounds hokey and cheesy, and everybody's, oh, I want to do good. I don't mean that I want to do good charitable work, which is fine. I still do that. I mean that the things that I contribute to the world make a difference in people's lives. So my company, books, all these different things, and have the autonomy and freedom to be able to not work. Like last week, I sort of started looking at it. I'm like, I've been sitting in this chair with 30 minutes, go in the bathroom, and I had food for 30 minutes for 14 hours. Why? Why? I know I'm an entrepreneur, and I don't need to do that. So having the freedom and autonomy to, if I choose to sit for 14 hours, I can do that. If I choose to take 2 days off and not do anything, that's ideal for me. And that's an ideal life of having that kind of freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah, being sick is definitely scary. I think like I realized this recently was like whenever I'm sick, there's kind of like a thought that like, okay, I'm sick now, but I'm getting better. And I just had this thought of like there could be a point like if you're sick and dying, there's something terrifying about that where it's like I am sick and I'm only going to get worse until it's over. So I definitely can I can relate to that.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. So as a
Uh-huh.
kid, I immigrated here with my mom's parent, my grandparents. My grandfather had a stroke, like in the first year, 2 years that we've been in America, and he proceeded to have multiple strokes and all kinds of conditions. It was like this domino effect of being sick. Lost. He was a big guy. My grandmother was really small. She'd like drag him around. He lost the use of his one side. Lost. He couldn't speak. It was horrible. I'll never forget. And so that's as a kid, I was probably like, I don't know, 10, 11, something like that, maybe 10, and ongoing. I would see this and it was scary to me. How can somebody so big, so powerful be so incapacitated? And I saw my mom, my grandmother sit there with little bags of prescription medications and speaking to doctors at least once a month. This medication is not working with this medication, or it's switching it. And then he gets a side effect and he gets a blood clot and he's got to go to the hospital. So I was always scared of being sick and incapacitated, and drugs, meaning not like prescription medication. because I kept seeing that the contraindications would cause these side effects to the individual. And that's one of my fears that I expressed over years. That's why I try to avoid them as much as possible. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, a very successful entrepreneur. I did his DNA test, so I knew sort of his predispositions before that. And then he said he had a venture that didn't go well. And all of a sudden, he became depressed and he had a depression marker. So it makes sense. He went to a psychopharmacologist and got prescribed an antidepressant. He was in LA. He was driving in LA, and he was driving with his wife and his son around the cliffs, like Mulholland. For those of you that don't know LA, we have a lot of these like Mulholland Drive. You can see there's cliffs and beautiful roads, but it can be dangerous. So he said, I had an overwhelming desire to drive off the cliff because it was so clear to me. I'm visualizing it. It was like pulling me to drive off the cliff. He goes, I had to pull over. And I pulled over. I came out of the car and my wife's like, are you okay? He goes, no, I'm not okay. And I shouldn't be driving. So when he went back to the psychopharmacologist, they did what's called a pharmacogenomics test. And he saw that the drug that he was prescribed was red. It was the wrong drug for him. So he also has treatment resistant depression. He's got a genotype for that, which I knew. The drugs probably wouldn't have worked for him, but he got the side effect. And the number one side effect of this medication was suicidal thoughts. And I was speaking at an event where there's a bunch of doctors and pharmaceutical people. And I said, how many of you do like a pharmacogenomics test prior to prescribing antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication? How many hands do you think went up in the room?
Not too many.
Zero. Not one. Wow. Not one. So that's the challenge with sick care in America. In a wonderful, wonderful acute care, the best in the world, probably. If you need surgery or you have a fracture, no place rather I be. But if you have chronic conditions, this is where we're challenged because we're always focusing on your elbow hurts. Okay, I can give you a shot for that, or I can give you a pill for that. There's like, why does your elbow hurt? Maybe it has something to do with stress. Well, what do you mean? Well, how is that? Well, maybe your cortisol levels are really high and your immune system is overreacting to that. So it's creating inflammation in your joint. Oh, I didn't think about that. Exactly. I'm not telling doctors how to do their job, but I had a doctor of Chinese medicine for years, a TCM, a doctor who would yell at me every single time I brushed my tongue because she's like, no, the tongue tells me what I need to know. And so stop brushing your tongue. No, we have to combine the two together.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's wrap it up there, Len. Can you tell people where to keep up with you, where to find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our company website is called it's EndoDNA, ENDODNA. I am on all the socials under Len May, Len May DNA on Instagram, and my music. If anybody's interested in record of the day stuff, it's Len May Music, and I'm Len May on TikTok. I have my coaching site is Len May Coaching. Same thing. My book is called Making Cannabis Personal. This is what it looks like. If anybody's interested, you can get that on Amazon. And there's 2 new ones. If there's a publisher who wants to publish any of my new ones, let me know. And I do my own podcast called Everything is Personal, where it's very similar to this. We just have a conversation, but I have some really cool and interesting people on there. So you can get that on anywhere you listen or watch podcasts, YouTube, and all the other ones.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you as well.
Bye, everybody.